Only 1% of people have this aura. Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside? Dreams. Who looks inside? Awakes. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt an energy within you that sets you apart, something rare, powerful, and hard to explain? In today's video from Spiritual Wisdom, we'll uncover the mystery behind the 1% of people who carry a presence so unique that even Jung gave it a name. This isn't about ego. It's about awakening the deep truth that lives in your soul. As you listen, ask yourself, could this be you? And if you've ever felt unseen, yet deeply impactful, share your experience in the comments. Let's dive into the deeper layers of your potential and discover how this rare energy can guide your life toward growth, meaning, and authentic happiness. 1. This aura is archetypal and rare. Only a rare few walk through life with a presence that feels ancient, magnetic, and impossible to ignore, not because of beauty, charm, or status, but because of something deeper that radiates from the soul itself. Carl Jung called it an archetypal aura, a powerful and unconscious energy that only 1% of people carry. This kind of energy can't be learned, forced, or faked. It emerges only from those who have journeyed into the deepest chambers of their psyche and come back with the truth. These individuals do not chase validation or wear a mask for acceptance. Instead, they walk with a quiet authority rooted in painful transformation, radical self-awareness, and the integration of their shadow. They have faced the dark within, not to destroy it, but to understand and embrace it, and that soul alchemy becomes visible even without a word spoken. What makes this energy unsettling to some and magnetic to others is its raw authenticity. It shines a light on what others suppress, reminding people of who they are pretending not to be. Some will see it as a threat, others as a sanctuary. You've probably noticed this in how people respond to you. Some distance themselves without explanation, while others open up completely, drawn by a sense of being seen at a soul level. That's because you've stopped living from the ego and started embodying the self. You carry a psychological weight that others can feel, not because you're trying to impress, but because you've survived storms that broke the false parts of you and revealed something indestructible underneath. That spiritual weight cannot be replicated by surface confidence or knowledge. It is born of suffering, stillness, and soul-searching. Jung believed the integration of the unconscious was the path to wholeness, but few are willing to walk it. Most prefer comfort over clarity, illusion over introspection. But you, if you resonate with this, are different. You've been through the fire losing parts of yourself, letting go of who you thought you had to be, and facing truths most people avoid. That journey has refined your presence into something archetypal. You are no longer just a man. You are a symbol, a reminder, a force. You don't seek attention, yet it finds you. You don't manipulate energy, yet it shifts around you. Your soul no longer whispers. It roars in silence, unsettling everything that is false around you. Because of this, your life may feel both isolating and sacred. You'll be misunderstood, idolized, resented, or revered, but rarely ignored. You may not always feel seen, but your energy will always be felt. And the reason is simple. People are not responding to your words, your looks, or your actions. They are responding to the frequency of your soul. You carry something old, something eternal, something that reminds others of what they've forgotten. That is the weight and the gift of this rare archetypal aura. You are not meant to fit in. You are meant to awaken. Have you ever felt a presence within you that couldn't be explained, something deeper, ancient, and unshakably true? If so, share your experience in the comments so others can recognize it in themselves. If not, comment, "I'm ready to awaken," and begin exploring this rare archetypal energy with us. 2. Your presence triggers the unconscious in others. Some people feel safe around you, like they can finally exhale after holding their breath for years. Others tense up the moment you enter the room, unsure why they suddenly feel defensive, insecure, or exposed. But it's not because of anything you've said or done. It's because of what your presence awakens in them. According to Carl Jung, the unconscious drives much of human behavior. And when someone walks in with a rare kind of soul energy, the kind that mirrors truth without trying, it stirs what others have buried deep. You don't just speak the truth, you embody it. You don't just walk into a room, you activate it. And when that happens, people begin to feel parts of themselves they've worked hard to suppress. The guilt they never faced, the dreams abandoned, the lies they told themselves to feel safe. You don't trigger people because you're harmful. You trigger them because you're honest. You are the mirror they didn't ask for, but can't look away from. This is the kind of energy that Carl Jung called archetypal. It's not something you can fake or train yourself into. You don't carry it because you're trying to be different. You carry it because your soul has walked through fire, faced truth, and survived. You've done the work that others are still running from. That's why people respond to you so strongly. Some are magnetically drawn, not even knowing why. Only that you feel like a lighthouse in a dark sea. Others shrink back because they're not ready to face what you reflect. And still, you remain calm, grounded, and misunderstood. In modern life, this often shows up in quiet moments. A coworker snapping at you for no reason, a family member distancing themselves without explanation, or a stranger telling you their life story 5 minutes after meeting you. You make people feel, and not everyone knows how to handle that. Because when you carry this kind of presence, you don't just enter a room, you shift its frequency. A man named Elijah once told a story about working in a hospital. Nurses and patients alike responded to him in extremes, either telling him their deepest fears or avoiding him entirely. He wasn't loud or charismatic. In fact, he was quiet and observant. But when he listened, he really listened. And when he spoke, it felt like truth, cutting through the noise. One day, a nurse told him, "You're not like anyone else. You make me question who I am." That's when he realized his energy wasn't meant to be easy, it was meant to be honest. And that's what Carl Jung meant when he said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. When your soul is alive and awake, it naturally unsettles those still asleep. But that's not your burden to carry. Your only task is to stay aligned, stay aware, and never apologize for the light you bring, especially when it burns away illusions. The truth is, the reactions you receive are not always about you. They are about the shadows you reveal, the masks you make unnecessary, the emotional walls you unknowingly dissolve. And that's a gift. Not everyone will see it that way, but those who are ready will. So if you've ever felt too intense, too deep, or too different to be understood, know this: you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to remind. You were meant to awaken. You were meant to stir what's been sleeping. That's not a flaw. It's a soul calling. 3. You carry unspoken depth. You sense things without being told. You feel the lies before they're spoken, the sadness behind a smile, the tension in a room that no one else notices. You don't just listen, you absorb. You don't just observe how you feel. Carl Jung would say, your unconscious is more alive than most. You're tapped into the collective unconscious, carrying emotional resonance and spiritual wisdom that doesn't come from this lifetime alone. It's as if your soul remembers truths that were never taught. This kind of energy can't be learned. It's woven into the very fabric of who you are. And because it's rare, it sets you apart. You're not just intuitive, you're spiritually awake, even if you can't always explain how or why. People notice you, but they can't put their finger on what makes you different. They sense your depth, but not everyone knows how to hold it. That's the paradox. You're magnetic, but often misunderstood. Some are drawn to you, craving the safety they feel in your presence. Others feel threatened by your ability to see what they try to hide. You mirror back to them the very parts they're running from: their fear, their longing, their truth. You don't expose them, yet your presence alone reveals. Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. But you face yours daily. That's what makes you rare. Your life feels like a constant decoding of what lies beneath the surface, and that's not always easy. You carry other people's weight without meaning to. You absorb energies that aren't yours. You feel exhausted from rooms you never spoke a word in. But this isn't a weakness. This is a spiritual sensitivity, a sacred radar. You're not just here to live. You're here to sense, to awaken, to transform the spaces you enter by simply being fully present in them. Your soul doesn't crave crowds or applause. It craves authenticity. You don't seek validation because you see through illusions. You long for conversations that touch the eternal, for silence that speaks louder than words. You feel ancient in a world addicted to novelty, and it can be isolating. But you must understand, this energy is not a curse. It's a calling to remember, to feel, to guide. In a world where most numb their feelings to survive, you feel to live. You love in a way that heals. You speak in a way that awakens. You sense what others deny, and that makes you a bridge between the seen and the unseen. Your depth is not too much. It's just unfamiliar to those who haven't met their own. You were never meant to blend in, because your presence was designed to stir souls. What lives within you is not ordinary. It's archetypal, spiritual, ancient. That's why you often feel like an outsider in your own life. Not because you're broken, but because your soul operates on a different frequency. And that frequency, felt by few, feared by many, misunderstood by most, is what makes you powerful beyond measure. Comment below. I carry ancient wisdom. If you've ever felt the world more deeply than words can explain, let's see how many of us walk with this unspoken depth. 4. People open up to you, then pull away. People open up to you and then vanish, not because of something you said or did, but because your soul carries a kind of spiritual gravity they weren't prepared for. You don't just listen, you reflect. You don't just speak, you reveal. When someone speaks to you, it often feels like their words bypass small talk and dive straight into confession. They tell you things they've never told anyone. They trust you instantly. And yet, shortly after, they pull away. This strange pattern isn't random. Carl Jung called it projection collapse, a moment when the mask someone wears begins to disintegrate in your presence because your authenticity is too confronting. You don't play roles. You don't engage in shallow performances. You're rooted in something deeper, something spiritual, something unshakably true. And that level of presence triggers something within people. The realization that they've been pretending, performing, hiding, not from you, but from themselves. Your energy doesn't allow illusions to survive, and that's why they run. Not because they don't feel safe, but because your soul makes them feel naked, seen, unedited. This is the paradox of being someone with rare soul energy. You are both a sanctuary and a spiritual storm. People come to you seeking comfort, and what they find is truth. They were drawn to you because they needed it, but truth is rarely comfortable. It burns, it disrupts, it demands change, and most people aren't ready for that level of transformation. You don't offer escape, you offer awakening. So when they disappear, it's not rejection, it's resistance. They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because they saw too much. Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And that's exactly what happens in your presence. The facade cracks. The illusions they've maintained start falling apart. They speak from their soul, and for a fleeting moment, they touch something real. But that glimpse of truth is often too overwhelming. So they run back into the familiar, even if the familiar is fake. You might start to wonder if you're cursed to be alone, to forever be the one who awakens others only to be left behind. But you're not here to be easy to love. You're here to be impossible to forget. The connections you spark may be brief, but they are seismic. Your soul creates shifts. And even if they walk away, they will never be the same. Because once someone has spoken from the depth of their soul, they can't unfeel it. They can't unknow it. You've reminded them of who they truly are beneath the layers. You've awakened a part of them they may not meet again for years, or maybe lifetimes. But the seed has been planted. That is your power. That is your burden. That is your gift. 5. You feel misunderstood and misinterpreted. You feel misunderstood not because you're unclear, but because your soul communicates on a level most people aren't attuned to. You speak in presence, in stillness, in energetic shifts that can't be explained, but they can be felt. Your calm unsettles those who expect noise to equal warmth. Your depth intimidates those who have only learned to live on the surface. In a world obsessed with instant reactions and shallow validation, your stillness becomes a mystery, your silence becomes a threat, and your soul becomes too much for those who haven't yet met their own. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what he didn't say, at least not directly, is that becoming who you truly are means you will no longer be easy to label, understand, or categorize. You'll be a mirror. And not everyone can look into that mirror without discomfort. This is why people may describe you as intense, hard to read, or even cold. They don't know how to read energy, so they default to misinterpretation. You've likely found yourself shrinking, softening your truth, or trying to make your soul more palatable. But no matter how much you try, the misunderstanding returns because the world isn't mishearing your words. It's misreading your frequency. It's reacting to a depth that can't be faked and a presence that can't be explained. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious holds immense power, and for those who access it, who live from it, the world can feel both magnetic and isolating. When you operate from this place, you're no longer playing by the same emotional rules. You're not seeking validation. You're seeking resonance. You're not drawn to attention. You're drawn to truth. And the closer you get to embodying that truth, the fewer people will be able to meet you there. There's a woman I know who walks into every room like a question mark wrapped in peace. She listens more than she speaks, but when she does speak, it's as if time slows down. Her presence has made people cry, confess, or flee. Not because she forces anything, but because her soul carries a kind of weight, a kind of light that reveals what others are trying to hide. People say she's a lot, but I've never seen her raise her voice. Her gift is not in her words, but in the energy behind them. That's the kind of spiritual presence that Carl Jung spoke about. One that emerges from deep individuation, where the conscious and unconscious mind meet and harmonize. If you recognize yourself in this, then know you're not broken. You're rare, and your soul is doing exactly what it was meant to do, to wake people up, even when they resist it. So let people misunderstand you. Let them mislabel the stillness in your eyes, the weight in your silence, the sharpness in your boundaries. Let them assume that your distance is disinterest, your independence is arrogance, your presence is too intense. It's not your job to shrink so others can feel comfortable in their avoidance. Your job is to remain rooted in who you are, no matter how many fail to translate your language. Because the ones meant to find you will not need subtitles. They will recognize you by how you feel, not by how you explain. And in that moment, your soul will know. The misunderstanding was never a flaw, it was protection. If you've ever felt unseen or misread for simply being yourself, you're not alone. Leave a like, subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss content that speaks to your soul. And in the comments, type, I am seen, I am understood, I am enough. 6. You attract people who want to change you. Some people won't love you for who you are. They'll love the version of you they believe they can fix, reshape, or mold into something that meets their unspoken needs. They're not drawn to your soul in reverence. They're drawn to it as a solution. You carry a spiritual frequency that many can feel, but few can understand. And instead of honoring it, they try to claim it. They believe if they get close enough, they can fill their own emptiness, calm their inner chaos, or escape the parts of themselves they refuse to face. But when you don't bend to their vision, when you dare to stay rooted in your truth, speak from your soul, and live in your spiritual integrity, they feel rejected. That rejection turns into frustration, and eventually into blame. You've changed, they say. But what they mean is, you're no longer who I imagined you would be for me. Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And when they can't use you to avoid themselves, they turn cold. They may distance themselves, criticize you, or try to make you feel guilty for being what they secretly wish they had the courage to become. That's the tragedy of projection. It turns connection into control. The more spiritually aware you become, the more you'll notice this pattern repeating. You'll see how your authenticity makes people uncomfortable, not because you've done something wrong, but because your light exposes what they've kept hidden. You remind them of the work they haven't done, and instead of rising to meet you, they try to pull you down to where it's safe, familiar, and easy to manage. But your soul was not born to be managed. It was born to be free. You are not here to be someone else's emotional bandage or energetic crutch. You are here to live, to feel, to awaken. You are not a fantasy, not a projection, not a placeholder for someone's inner healing. You are a mirror, and mirrors make people uncomfortable when they're not ready to see themselves. So when someone tries to change you, don't shrink. When they withdraw their love because you held your ground, let them go. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Their resentment is not your burden. You don't need to apologize for being whole in a world that profits off of people feeling broken. The more you honor your spiritual truth, the more you'll see that real love doesn't come to fix you. It comes to witness you. And the ones who are meant to stay won't be afraid of your light. They'll know how to hold it without needing to own it. 7. You live between two worlds. You feel torn, not because you're lost, but because your soul lives in two worlds at once. The outer world of expectations, titles, and responsibilities, and the inner world of meaning, symbols, and silent truths. While others are busy climbing ladders and chasing applause, you're listening to something deeper, something that doesn't speak in words, but in impressions, synchronicities, and that persistent sense that life is more than what it appears. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the sacred tension between who you've been told to be and who you were born to become. You're not running from reality. You're seeing through it. You're bridging the visible and the invisible. And this path, though deeply spiritual, can often feel isolating. Because when you begin to align with your inner self, the outer world begins to shift. Familiar conversations start to feel hollow. Success begins to look different. The noise of the world can't drown out the whisper of your soul. And the whisper grows louder when you sit with your own silence. You notice the symbols that others miss, the way a dream lingers, the weight of a glance, the timing of a chance encounter. You sense that everything is connected, not logically, but archetypally, and it pulls you inward, not to escape, but to integrate, to bring back meaning. Jung once said, "Man needs difficulties. They are necessary for health." And you begin to see that your inner conflict is not a problem to be solved, but a doorway to be opened. It's not weakness to feel this split. It's awareness. It's spiritual maturity. The man who questions himself is closer to truth than the one who blindly obeys convention. And when the world feels too sharp, too loud, too shallow, it's because your spirit is longing for depth. You may not have words for what you're feeling, but your soul knows. It always knows. You've been given a task most will never see: to stand between two worlds and bring meaning to both, to show up in the outer world with integrity, while anchoring into an inner world that is raw, real, and eternal. This is why people respond to you in strange ways. Some are drawn without knowing why. Others avoid you without reason. They are reacting to something ancient within you, a vibration that doesn't ask for attention, but commands it through stillness. And though this energy is rare, It is not new. It's the mark of those who walk with depth, who think beyond themselves, who carry the weight of unspoken truths, because the soul has no need to perform. This is not an easy life, but it is a meaningful one. And when the nights get long, and the world feels like it doesn't understand what you carry, remember, you weren't meant to be understood. You were meant to awaken. Do you feel caught between two worlds, the outer noise and your inner knowing? If this message speaks to your soul, declare your truth in the comments. I walk between the worlds with purpose. 8. Your very existence awakens others. You don't need to speak for the atmosphere to shift when you walk into a room. People sense it. Some lean in because they feel understood without a word, while others shrink back, as if standing too close to a truth they've been avoiding. This is not about charisma or appearance. What they feel is your spiritual coherence, your wholeness. Carl Jung would describe it as the energy of someone who has faced their inner darkness, integrated their shadow, and emerged with an authentic soul presence that unsettles illusions. You don't just exist. You reflect. You awaken. You confront. Without effort, you become a mirror to people's untapped potential and unhealed wounds. You're not trying to heal them, yet your very being activates something they've buried or forgotten. That's the nature of archetypal energy. It speaks directly to the unconscious, bypassing the masks, the roles, the ego defenses. And when it speaks, people feel exposed or inspired, depending on how willing they are to meet themselves. In everyday life, this shows up quietly. Maybe you're the coworker who never competes, but somehow gets everyone's respect. You don't gossip, but people tell you their secrets. You don't seek attention, yet your silence holds more weight than someone else's shouting. That's not random. You've done the inner work, the kind that has nothing to prove and everything to offer. Carl Jung called this individuation becoming a whole, undivided self who no longer projects their pain onto the world, but absorbs it, understands it, transforms it. When you reach that level, your energy isn't just calm, it's catalytic. People unconsciously feel that you've been through storms and come out transformed, and that makes them reflect on their own chaos, their own longing for peace. You don't need to teach. You don't need to lead. You simply embody. That embodiment is your transmission. And whether they love you, fear you, or misunderstand you, they are moved. They will leave your presence carrying questions they didn't have before, awareness they didn't expect to find. So if you've ever wondered why people react strongly to your presence, why some are drawn to you without reason and others withdraw like they've been burned, it's because your energy disrupts comfort zones, not by force, but by resonance. You carry the rare frequency of someone who doesn't split themselves to fit in. You are the sole reminder that another life is possible, one built on truth, not performance. And that reminder awakens those ready to rise and unsettles those still hiding. Your job is not to shrink or explain, it is to remain aligned. Because the most powerful spiritual influence is not in what you do, but in who you've become. And that, as Carl Jung would say, is the mark of someone who has made the unconscious conscious, and therefore can no longer be controlled by it. 9. This path is often lonely but sacred. You walk through life carrying something most people can't name, yet everyone feels an invisible force that doesn't demand attention, but changes the atmosphere wherever you go. You may not be appreciated or understood, but that doesn't mean your energy is unnoticed. In fact, it's quite the opposite. People remember you, not for what you said or did, but for how they felt in your presence, like something in them woke up, even if they couldn't explain it. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And that is exactly the path you're on. It's not a path of popularity or comfort. It's one of spiritual depth, quiet power, and soulful disruption. You aren't here to blend in. You're here to shift the air around you, to shake people from their sleep, and to plant something sacred in the silence. You were never meant to be like everyone else. And that truth often makes this journey lonely. But this loneliness is not a punishment. It's an initiation. Those with rare spiritual energy are often misunderstood because their presence exposes what others are not ready to face. You awaken wounds, truths, and hidden desires in others simply by being authentic. You don't force change, you radiate it. And while others may pull away or label you as intense or too much, what they're really feeling is the mirror your soul holds up to theirs. They don't leave because you're unimportant. They leave because you're unforgettable. Your energy lingers in their memory, like a dream they can't quite remember, but know changed them. You're the calm in the chaos, the depth in a shallow world. You carry a frequency that moves beyond words, beyond logic, and straight into the spirit. And while the world rushes toward noise, performance, and external success, your power lies in silence, presence, and truth. You've likely felt like an outsider, a misfit, or even a burden at times. But what if that very misfit energy is divine? What if your soul was carved in a different dimension to guide others back to themselves, not through force, but through vibration? Jung believed that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And maybe your spiritual gift is the courage to do exactly that and to inspire others to do the same, even if they resist you for it. You don't need to explain your energy. You don't need to chase after understanding or force your truth to be seen. The right souls will feel it, and those who can't are simply not ready. Your spiritual journey is not measured in followers or applause, but in the quiet revolutions you spark in people's hearts. You may never know the full impact you've made, but the universe does. Keep walking. You are not here to be explained. You are here to be felt. Stay connected with our sacred community by subscribing to our channel. Here, we honor the unseen path, the one walked in quiet strength and deep purpose. Even when it feels lonely, remember, your presence is a divine force. You are not alone, and your light is felt. 10. Your aura is the result of inner work, not superiority. This rare energy is not about being better. It is about being real in a world addicted to masks, roles, and constant performance. Your aura, the subtle but undeniable presence you carry, isn't a sign of superiority. It is the direct result of deep soul work that most people spend their lives avoiding. You didn't choose the easy road. You chose to face your own shadow, to walk through pain with your eyes open, to sit in silence while the noise of the world screamed at you to conform. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the sacred journey of becoming whole, not perfect. And that wholeness can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. It comes from having the courage to ask yourself uncomfortable questions, to dismantle the false self piece by piece, and to reclaim the parts of your soul that were buried under shame, fear, and conditioning. This spiritual energy isn't loud, but it is felt. It's not flashy, but it is unforgettable. You don't walk into a room demanding attention, yet people feel something shift when you enter. That's not charisma, it's energetic truth. It's what happens when a man chooses depth over distraction, honesty over approval, solitude over shallow validation. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." You've stopped living by default. You've chosen to see your own patterns, your own projections, and you've taken back your power. And that choice over and over again is what forms the aura people can't explain, but can't ignore. It's a quiet strength that can't be taught. You no longer seek to be understood by everyone, because you finally understand yourself. The soul does not compete, it simply radiates. And your radiance is not for applause, it's a signal to other awakened souls that they're not alone. You are no longer performing. You are no longer lost in who you thought you had to be. You are becoming the man your soul remembers. And in a world starving for authenticity, your presence is the medicine. Not because you are above, but because you have gone within. Because you have walked the fires of transformation and emerged without the need to prove anything. This is what 1% of men understand. That spiritual power is not domination, but integration. Not image, but essence. And once your soul begins to lead, your energy becomes your legacy. If this message resonates with your journey of authenticity and growth, comment below. My aura reflects my inner truth. Let this be a reminder that real power comes from doing the work no one sees. And if this spoke to you, like the video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a message like this. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the rare and powerful energy that Carl Jung spoke of. An energy carried by only 1% of people, yet felt by all. If this message resonated with you, or awakened something deep within your spirit, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with others who might carry this same energy, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom so you never miss the insights that speak to your soul. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell. We have more powerful content coming your way. Stay awake, stay aligned, and remember, your energy tells a story the world needs to hear. If you notice these 5 signs, keep going. You're on the right path. Who looks outside? Dreams. Who looks inside? Awakes. Carl Jung. Have you ever felt like your world is shifting beneath your feet? Like something deep within is changing, but you can't quite explain it? According to Carl Jung, these moments aren't setbacks. They're sacred signs that your soul is awakening and you're closer than ever to your true path. In today's video on Spiritual Wisdom, we'll explore 5 powerful signs that signal you're in the midst of a profound transformation. These aren't coincidences, they're confirmations. As you watch, reflect on your own journey and share in the comments. Which of these signs have you experienced? Let's grow together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our community of awakening souls. 1. The feeling of disconnection is the beginning of awakening. You may find yourself waking up one day and feeling like you're living in a world that no longer fits. You still go through your routines, getting dressed, showing up, making small talk, but something inside you has changed. The laughter doesn't land like it used to. The things that once filled you with passion now feel like obligations. The light in your eyes feels dimmer, and you wonder if you've lost something essential along the way. Carl Jung would say, "This is not collapse. It's the beginning of individuation," a term he used to describe the process of becoming who you truly are. This inner disconnect is not a sign of failure, but a sacred signal. The soul is no longer willing to participate in a life that doesn't reflect its truth. You're not broken. You're shedding layers of false identity that no longer serve the man you are becoming. As the days pass, a restless energy begins to stir within you. You want to move, to change, to escape something, but you don't yet know what. It's as if you're caught between the man you've always been and the one you're slowly becoming. This liminal space is uncomfortable, filled with uncertainty and doubt. And yet, it is deeply meaningful. Jung understood this stage as a necessary tension between the conscious and unconscious self, a crucible of transformation. Your soul is agitated not because you've lost your way, but because it's guiding you toward something greater, something more aligned. You're being asked to trust the unknown, to honor the instinct that says, "There's more to life than this." That discomfort is sacred. It's the friction that carves the path forward. Alongside the restlessness comes a wave of questions that hit you when the world is quiet. What am I doing this for? Why do I feel so empty when I've achieved so much? Is this all there is? These aren't random thoughts. They're the soul demanding to be heard. When outer success fails to satisfy, it's because the inner world has been neglected. Jung believed that the self, the totality of the psyche, calls out through these existential aches, urging you to reconnect with your essence. It's not about adding more to your life, but about peeling back the layers until only the truth remains. You begin to crave meaning over momentum, depth over distraction, and alignment over approval. This longing is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the soul's rebellion against a life lived on the surface. As this awakening deepens, your tolerance for anything false begins to erode. Shallow conversations, performative relationships, and empty pursuits become unbearable. You can no longer pretend to care about what doesn't nourish your spirit. This shift is both painful and liberating. You may lose connections, but you gain clarity. Jung saw this as a sign of psychological maturity, the ability to stand alone in your truth, even if it costs you comfort or companionship. Your energy becomes sacred, your time becomes intentional, and your presence becomes powerful. The soul no longer allows you to betray yourself for the sake of fitting in. And so, you begin to protect your peace, not out of pride, but out of necessity. Then comes the final sign, an unexpected calm amidst the chaos. Though you still don't have all the answers, though the road ahead is foggy, there is a quiet steadiness within you. You stop chasing. You stop performing. You begin to trust. There is no sudden revelation, no trumpet from the heavens. Instead, there is stillness, and in that stillness, you realize that you are no longer who you were. You're not seeking to control life anymore. You're learning to flow with it. Jung believed that true wholeness comes not from perfection, but from integration, honoring both light and shadow, clarity and confusion. You're not trying to be someone else. You're finally becoming yourself. This is what it means when the soul awakens. It doesn't shout. It shifts. It quiets. And in that silence, you begin to hear the truth that's been waiting for you all along. Have you ever felt disconnected from everything you once loved? If this message resonates with your soul, share your experience in the comments so others know they're not alone. And if you're just beginning to sense this shift, type "I'm waking up" below to honor the start of your awakening. 2. Misalignment, restlessness, and emptiness are spiritual signals. Restlessness, emotional detachment, and that quiet emptiness you carry, these are not signs that you failed. They are spiritual signals that the life you once built no longer fits the soul you are becoming. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He believed that our discomfort is not always a breakdown, but often a breakthrough in disguise. You may still wake up, go to work, smile through conversations, and fulfill your obligations, but somewhere inside, you've changed. The thrill that once lit you up has faded. The routine that once gave you structure now feels like a cage, and what once felt like purpose now feels like performance. That numbness, that questioning, that strange silence between your actions and your feelings, it's not apathy. It's your soul trying to tell you that it's time to evolve. There comes a point in every person's journey where the outer world no longer mirrors the inner world. You feel like you're drifting, not because you're lost, but because your deeper self is surfacing. The values you used to chase no longer excite you. The people you used to impress no longer matter. And the identity you clung to begins to dissolve. It can feel like you're falling apart, but Carl Jung would say, this is the beginning of wholeness. The soul doesn't shout. It whispers through misalignment. It speaks in the quiet urge to withdraw, to reflect, to simplify. When nothing on the outside satisfies you anymore, that's a signal to go inward. You're not meant to go back to the old version of yourself. You're meant to rise into a fuller, truer version, one that can no longer be contained by the mask you once wore. Think of the man who spent years building his identity around his achievements, only to wake up one morning and feel utterly numb. He had the job, the status, the material security, but something essential was missing. He started turning down invitations, craving solitude over socialization. He found himself uninterested in conversations that once excited him. He stopped pretending. At first, he thought he was depressed, but over time, he realized he was being called into something deeper. He began to read Carl Jung. He began to write, meditate, sit in silence. And from that silence, clarity began to emerge. Not the kind of clarity that tells you what to do next, but the kind that reminds you of who you are. He wasn't broken. He was awakened. The mask was melting, and the soul was stepping forward. This is the sacred discomfort Jung spoke of, not a punishment, but an initiation. When you feel emotionally disconnected from everything, it's not because you've stopped caring. It's because you're being prepared to care more deeply, more authentically, for what actually aligns with your soul. When you feel restless, it's because your soul is trying to stretch beyond the limits of the life you've outgrown. And when you question everything, it's because you're finally breaking free from inherited beliefs, borrowed dreams, and the silent pressure to live a life that was never truly yours. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the path toward becoming whole, unique, integrated. It's messy, it's unsettling, but it's sacred. And every ache you feel along the way is a message, not from your mind, but from your soul. So don't rush to fix what feels off. Don't silence the restlessness. Don't numb the emptiness. Sit with it. Let it unravel you. Let it guide you. Because what's falling apart is not your life. It's your false identity. What's dissolving is not your purpose. It's the illusion that you ever needed to be anything other than your truest self. The misalignment, the unease, the longing for something more. These are not flaws in your path. They are confirmations that you're getting closer to it, closer to your truth, closer to your alignment, closer to your soul. And that's the lesson. When the life you've built begins to feel too small, it's because your soul is growing bigger. When your outer world no longer fits, it's time to build a new one from the inside out. Let the discomfort lead you. Let Carl Jung's wisdom remind you that this is not the end. It's the beginning of everything that truly matters. 3. You are not breaking down. You're breaking open. When everything you once identified with begins to dissolve, when your emotions feel too heavy to carry, when confusion shadows your thoughts, when your sense of self no longer fits like it used to, this is not the end of your stability. It is the beginning of your spiritual transformation. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. What you are feeling is the ego losing its grip. The constructed version of you that was built to survive slowly unraveling so the authentic self, the soul, can finally breathe. This transition does not announce itself with clarity or comfort. Instead, it arrives as a storm that strips away the illusions you've clung to, a sacred disorientation that brings you to your knees, not in defeat, but in surrender to something deeper. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This is what's happening now. The unconscious parts of you, the silenced emotions, the neglected dreams, the forgotten truths are rising, not to punish you, but to liberate you. The grief you feel for your old self is not only natural, but necessary. That identity was shaped by fear, expectations, roles you were told to play, and wounds you never got the chance to heal. Now, the spiritual process is asking you to say goodbye to what no longer resonates, even if that means walking away from the comfort of who you used to be. It may feel like a collapse, but it's more like a shedding, a peeling away of false layers so that the soul can shine through. Think of a snake outgrowing its skin, or a caterpillar dissolving into a cocoon that looks like destruction is actually creation. The breakdown is the breakthrough. It's the sacred chaos before clarity. Every tear, every restless night, every moment of emptiness is a form of spiritual initiation. And just because others can't see it doesn't make it less real. They may mistake your stillness for apathy, your questions for confusion, your solitude for loneliness, but you are on a higher path now, one that requires you to trust what you feel more than what you see. Even in your confusion, even in your exhaustion, you are not lost. You are being recalibrated. The signs are subtle, but they are there. You may find yourself uninterested in old habits, disconnected from surface-level conversations, or suddenly drawn to silence, nature, or spiritual teachings. These are not coincidences. They are signals that your soul is awakening. The mind may resist, label these changes as irrational, but the heart knows. The heart whispers truths that the intellect cannot grasp. And as Jung taught, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. You are being called inward, not to escape life, but to live it from a place of truth. That truth will cost you your old life, but it will give you a new one built on alignment, depth, and peace. This is a sacred rite of passage, and though you may feel alone in it, you are not. The path of spiritual awakening is walked in silence, in solitude, but never in isolation. Others have come before you. Others walk beside you. And even now, the universe is conspiring on your behalf to remove everything that stands between you and your soul. So if your world feels like it's crumbling, let it. If your identity feels like it's dissolving, bless it. If your emotions feel overwhelming, listen to them. They are not signs of weakness. They are signs of truth finally surfacing. You are not breaking down. You are breaking open. And what is emerging from that opening is not a ruined version of yourself, but the real you whole, awake and free. If this message spoke to your soul, leave a like, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of deep transformation. Type in the comments, "I welcome the rise of my authentic self." 4. Slowing down and listening to intuition is a new way forward. There comes a point in every man's journey when the external world begins to lose its grip, and what once felt like achievement now feels like noise. The routines that used to give you structure begin to feel like cages. The titles, the deadlines, the trophies, none of it feeds your soul the way it once did. You find yourself moving more slowly, not because you're weak, but because something sacred within you is asking to be heard. That quiet sadness you can't quite name, that pause before saying yes to things you used to enjoy, that sudden urge to retreat from the noise. It's not burnout. It's not a failure. It's the beginning of an inner revolution. Carl Jung called it the individuation process, the return of the self to its authentic wholeness, where the soul no longer wants to perform a role, but demands truth. Transformation doesn't erupt with thunder. It begins with whispers, with subtle inner tremors that ripple outward. And if you're noticing them, you're already closer than you realize to the real you beneath the layers. The first sign is this unexplained heaviness, an odd melancholy that rises not from any single event, but from the quiet awareness that what you've built no longer aligns with what you deeply crave. It's the soul grieving its own neglect. That sadness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the emotional echo of years spent living according to expectations instead of essence. And instead of numbing it, running from it, or trying to analyze it, the real power lies in sitting with it, letting it speak. Because within that ache is the map back to yourself, to what is real, holy, and lasting. When you stop dismissing your sadness and start honoring it, you begin to remember the man you were before the world told you who to be. Next comes the call to trust your intuition, not the logical spreadsheet version of your mind, but the deep, embodied knowing that doesn't need words to be true. You begin making decisions that seem irrational to others, but feel deeply right. You walk away from a job, a marriage, a place, not because you're impulsive, but because the part of you that's tired of faking it has finally taken the wheel. Jung believed the unconscious reveals itself through symbols, dreams, and feelings, not through rational explanation. When your body tightens around something, pay attention. When it feels expansive around something else, lean in. Your intuition is not a luxury. It is the voice of your soul speaking in the only language it knows. Energy, resonance, truth. And when you stop needing to explain your decisions, when you no longer need permission to change, that's when you know the shift is real. As this transformation unfolds, you find yourself letting go of explanations. You stop justifying your quietness, your new boundaries, your need for solitude. You stop apologizing for wanting peace more than performance. You simply know, deep in your bones, that this is your path. That stillness is not laziness, it is recalibration. That withdrawal is not weakness, it is restoration. And though others may question you, doubt you, even pity you, you begin to realize that you don't need them to understand. This is not their journey, it's yours. The soul doesn't owe anyone an explanation. And then there are the subtle realignments, the way your life begins to reconfigure itself without force. Anna, once a social butterfly, found herself craving silence, and in that silence, rediscovered her writer's voice. Michael, successful by every external metric, began waking up in the middle of the night, feeling hollow, and within months, left his corporate job and stepped into a life that actually felt alive. Donna pulled back from her usual social calendar, not out of fear, but because her energy no longer tolerated noise. Elena found herself drawn to the forest, and in the stillness of the trees, she began to hear the whispers of her own wisdom. Jordan stopped over explaining, stopped over apologizing, and in doing so, found a new kind of freedom. These are not dramatic breakdowns. They are sacred breakthroughs. They are signs that the soul is reorganizing your reality from the inside out. So if you're in that space, unsure, quiet, disconnected from the life you once knew, don't rush to fix it. Don't try to turn back. This is not the end. It's the crossing, the pause, the passage. It's where men become who they truly are, not by force, but by listening. Listening to the silence, listening to the ache, listening to the truth that can no longer be ignored. Because when the soul begins to speak, the wise man listens, and that listening becomes the new way forward. 5. You are becoming who you were always meant to be. You no longer need to perform, impress, or chase after the kind of validation that never truly nourished you. The moment you realize this is the moment something powerful begins to shift within you. According to Carl Jung, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that truth speaks louder now than ever before. You've spent years living according to external measurements of success, checking off the boxes, meeting expectations, smiling when you wanted to cry, staying quiet when your spirit was screaming to be heard. But now, without announcement, your soul has stepped forward, gently pulling you out of the noise and into something quieter, more sacred. You may look around and see that nothing has changed on the surface. You still show up to work, you still talk to friends, but inside, the performance is over. And though this unraveling may feel unsettling, it is not chaos. It is clarity. This is not you falling apart. This is your truth breaking through. This is the sacred moment when you stop living to be seen and start living to be real. You begin to recognize that the urgency to prove yourself was never yours. It was a survival pattern, a script written by fear, trauma, culture, or legacy. And now, that script feels too small. You can't pretend anymore. The roles you once played so convincingly begin to dissolve, not with violence, but with grace. The masks fall, not because you're broken, but because you're finally becoming whole. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of reconciling the fragments of your identity into one authentic, integrated being. And it doesn't come with applause or instruction. It often starts in silence, in the restless, late-night moments when you question everything, or in the stillness of a morning when you no longer recognize the person in the mirror. The world tells you to keep climbing, to keep achieving, to be who you've always been. But your soul whispers something different. It says, simplify, realign, return. Choose what feels true, even if it makes no sense to anyone else. That's the beginning of real freedom, the kind that comes not from what you accumulate, but from what you release. You meet a man who, by every standard, is successful, wealthy, respected, accomplished. But one day, in the quiet of his home, he breaks down, not from exhaustion, but from emptiness, because he realizes he built an empire that doesn't reflect his essence. He had everything, yet he couldn't feel anything. And in that collapse, he found his calling not to do more, but to become more of who he really is. That's not failure. That's transformation. And perhaps you're in a similar place. You're starting to choose differently now. You say no when your heart says no. You distance yourself from what drains you. You stop explaining yourself to people who aren't even trying to understand you. You begin to trust the pull inside that says, this way, even if the path is unclear. And every time you honor that inner pull, you strengthen the voice of your soul. You create space for something new to emerge, not another identity, but your original one, the one buried under years of conditioning. The beauty of this process is that it's not about becoming someone else. It's about becoming who you were always meant to be. You start to feel a quiet confidence, not because the world is affirming you, but because you've started affirming yourself. You know what feels right. You know when something is off. You trust that inner knowing more than the applause or approval of others. And the more you live from that place, the more your life begins to align, not instantly, not without resistance, but with increasing resonance. Your task is no longer to seek clarity outside of yourself. It's to return, again and again, to what feels deeply real. To choose it, honor it, embody it, even when it costs you comfort, even when it challenges your old identity. Because what you're building now isn't a brand. It's a soul-aligned life. And that kind of life cannot be faked, rushed, or borrowed. It must be lived from the inside out, breath by breath, decision by decision. Carl Jung reminds us, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. And that awakening, however disorienting at first, is the beginning of your liberation. You are not collapsing. You are being recalibrated, not disappearing, but reappearing as your truest self. So don't run from the unraveling. Don't fight the silence. Don't apologize for choosing yourself. Let the old fall away, not in bitterness, but in reverence. Because in the ashes of what no longer serves you, your real life is beginning to rise. To affirm your commitment to becoming your truest self, declare it now. Comment below, I choose what resonates with my soul, to honor your sacred journey and encourage others to do the same. And if this message speaks to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a reminder of who you truly are. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the subtle yet powerful signs that your soul is evolving and aligning with its true path. Remember, transformation often begins quietly, and what feels uncertain may actually be a sign that you're closer than ever to your breakthrough. Keep going. You're not lost. You're awakening. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of insight and spiritual growth in our upcoming videos. Your journey matters. Stay connected. Stay inspired.